Recording in progress. Jessica Johnson, hey. I don't think she heard yet, but hey. All right. And Alvin, thanks for jumping on. Kelly, how are you? Kelly, you just got off the Zoom for the app, right?
What?
You just got off the Zoom for the app, for the Bright app?
Yeah. Sorry, I just got on this one because I'm on another Zoom for something else right now too.
Good. I'm glad to hear that we have 100% of your attention. That's fantastic.
You do. I'm not listening.
Leave her
It's just
alone.
Joe Whipple.
Oh, dear Lord. I love you guys. You're all awesome. All right. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get rolling. All right. And guys, you can jump in with questions as we start going through this. All right. And I've never done a presentation or slide in Zoom before. So, all right, cool. That works really well. All right, today. So what you've done, I'll have this on the YouTube channel and the Facebook group too. So today we talk about getting your seller's mindset ready to sell. So one of the things, and when people talk about selling, depending on how you go into the appointment, right? If it's a referral, it's a lot easier going in.
You might want to hear this.
The transaction and
Getting people ready to sell, in the mindset to sell. Do you want to hear it or not?
What is happening?
tell Stan he definitely wants to hear. He wants to hear me talk.
Oh my God, I'm not on mute. I'm sorry.
Love you, Stan. Oh, that's great. So, all right. So look, at the selling a property and working with the seller, a lot of it is psychology. There's so much more that goes into going out, sitting with the seller, talking to them, putting it up for sale, sell it, close, boom, done. There's a lot of psychology that goes into this transaction, especially if you want to get the seller on your side and you want to have a lot of control over the transaction to make everything a lot easier. So look, everything we do in sales, I mean, it's a psych game, right? And we play a lot of psychology. That's why I like to study people. And I think I'm I study people more than I probably read books. I think I definitely do. So a couple things when you're talking to the seller and getting their mindset right. All right. Multiple conversations. I gotta change this thing around. Multiple conversations you need to have with the seller to get their mindset right when you're talking about listing their home. So getting into a couple of them. Then you have to break it down into a few different components. One of the first conversations is understanding the market and talking about the market. You have to get them right and understanding what is going on in the marketplace, because they are probably talking to Uncle Joe, Aunt Mary, Billy Bob, cousin around the corner, trying to figure out what's going on in real estate. And we know they're not getting the right statistical information, or they're listening to the national media, and the national media has nothing to do with what's going on around here in the local marketplace. So you want to discuss what's going on in the current real estate market. And guys, understand some of this info that we're going through may not necessarily apply to the market that we're in right now when you're getting 20 offers on a property. All right, more of a sane market, okay? But you want to talk about the current real estate market. And then when I take a look at things too, let me get into something else, and I'll show you this. I like to go in and talk to them real estate on a macro level. All right, when I say it on a macro level, what I want to do is that if I'll use Cherry Hill for an example, because I'm in Cherry Hill and live in Cherry Hill. So I want to break it down to them, start talking to them about what's going on in the Cherry Hill real estate market. Because if someone is buying in Cherry Hill, they're buying in Cherry Hill for a specific reason, right? So we want to understand and help them understand what is going on in the Cherry Hill market as a whole. Now, all this information you can find and you can get in the MLS. And there are, going into this, there are videos on my YouTube channel, which everyone should have the link to. If you don't, let me know, I'll get it to you. But there are videos on there on how to find this information. So when you're going in and you want to break things down on a macro level to Cherry Hill, there are a couple different reports in the MLS that you can find. One is the market statistics report, and the other one is residential activity report. What I'll do is I'll go to the market statistics report first and show you something in there. And this is information that you really want to, I think I have it written down here too, when you discuss the local market on a micro and a macro level, print this information out and either leave it there with them or email it to them so they have an actual copy. All right. So I'm in the market stats report, pull in, and you can put in, I'll go back 6 months, put in some dates, and then the specific township that you are in and that the property's in. run this report, and here's the information that this is going to give you, okay? So this will give you a 6-month rundown of what is going on in the Cherry Hill market as a whole. Talks about the units listed in the specific months, what the volume is, the meaning of it. And this right here, guys, is something that's incredibly important. This talks about the monthly supply of inventory when you're dealing with that. And what the monthly supply of inventory means, that this number 1 right here and 1.5, 1.4, that means that if there are no more houses to be placed on the market for sale starting today, it'll take 1.5 months to clear out every property for sale in Cherry Hill. Okay, and that's it. That's incredibly low, and that is a massive seller's market right there. To give you an understanding and to put it in context, a balanced real estate market is 6 months of inventory supply. So when you look at 6 months of inventory supply, and right now Cherry Hill is sitting on about 1.5 months of inventory, it's a massive, huge seller's market. There's no inventory. We understand that. But these are things that you want them to understand when you're talking to them about the macro market in the township that they live in. This gives you the number of properties that were placed under contract in that specific month and the number of units that sold in that specific month as well. And these are all totals down here. Okay. So there's another report. Guys, any questions on this report here before I move on? Good. Okay. So next part, I'm discussing the local real estate market on the macro. That's on the macro. I want to talk to them about the township as a whole. Then I'm going to discuss it on the micro. And now, whether I'm talking about it on a micro, that may be neighborhood specific. If they live in a specific neighborhood, you can pull up that specific neighborhood and talk about that too. So if I'm going to look at Cherry Hill, I live in a neighborhood called Haddontown. So I'll pull up Cherry Hill for the township, and then subdivision, I'll pull up Haddontown. Okay, and this is going to give me some specific information on there. Well, they have Haddontown. It's also Crescent Woods. Why there's 2 different names, I have no idea. All right, nothing's coming up in there. I have no idea why, but I know there's property going on. So here's another way you do it. If you can't find something by subdivision, click on the map. You click on the map feature. All right, this will take you to a map, and then you can plug in the address of the property right here. So I'll plug in mine, 144 Mansfield Boulevard North, Cherry Hill. Okay, so I'm gonna get that moved up a little bit. Oh, go up a little bit. All right. What is really going on right here? There's stuff that's going on for sale in my neighborhood. Not a whole lot. But anyway, so these little icons around here are houses that are up for sale. Hold on 1 second, guys. And that. Oh, my bad. Pending, closed, and let me go back to the map. Bear with me 1 second, guys. I'm sorry. Mansfield Boulevard. Cool. All right. There we go. So here we go. So this property right here, now I'm breaking it down on a very macro level in the specific neighborhood where the property is. If it's red, it means it's sold. If it's this orange color, it's currently under contract right now. So if I'm taking a look at this and I click on the property, this will show me that this property in my neighborhood in Haddontown, right there, subdivision Haddontown, is currently under contract at $435. I think it's freaking nuts because this is the model of my house and I would never pay $435 for my house, but that's a whole nother story itself. So this will be able to give you more specific breakdown. If you can't find something, if you're not getting enough data, or if sometimes if there's nothing available and there's none available for a specific neighborhood, because we've seen that before too. If you look at stuff or you're looking at public records, it'll say none available. So you want to pull up the information for the properties that are in the specific neighborhood too. That breaks it down more on a micro level for the property owner. Another report that's good is the residential activity report. And this is something that I went over with Gianna a couple of days ago. We were going through some information talking about marketing and farming. So I'll go back the same 6 months and I'll pull up Cherry Hill. And here's where it breaks it down more specific. And what I like about this, there's a few things I like about this report, is that it breaks it down and gives you the activity based on price points. What's great about that is that when you're talking to people and they are and you're in a certain price point, you'll be able to give them specific details on, okay, you're in Cherry Hill, you got a house between 750 and 800,000. Okay, well, we've had 4 properties that have closed in the last 6 months in that price range, and that's 4 out of 365. So it's a small percentage of properties that are selling, and that's where you can help talk to the seller to have them understand and set realistic expectations with them that, hey, you're not going to fly off the shelf because there's only been 4 properties out of 365 in the last 6 months that have actually sold in that price range. And that's where you're talking about, 1% of properties that are selling in that price range. You don't have a massive amount of properties in that price range. Then you can really see the sweet spot for properties too, is that if you're in between 350 and 4, that's where the most have sold. So great, you're going to be hot demand, it's going to fly pretty quick. Okay. When you look at some of the other information down here too, it also talks about days on the market. And this is a great indicator here about getting people to price the property right from day one. And that's where if you're in a battle with the seller on the price, and if you know what that price should be, say you're at 400 and they want to be at 475, and you know that's not the price, getting them down to understand here what the average sold price is. So this is the sold price compared to the original list price. As the longer you're on the market, the more you're going down, the greater your property value is going down. That price is going down. And if you're on the market for 6 months, you see it's gone down 7% compared to if you sell within the first 30 days. And the last time I checked, we typically charge around 6%. And if anyone sees this on YouTube, commissions are not fixed by law and negotiable. So you understand. But that takes care of commission right there, guys. Okay. Also breaks down financing for the sales as well. So you can get an idea about what to expect for financing. So the majority of the properties are selling with conventional financing. Then you have FHA and you have cash. So when you take a look at those sales at 365, I mean, you got 200 or 330 that are cash or conventional. Okay. And we're unfortunate right now that not a lot of FHA buyers are getting in a bat and getting an opportunity, but it just happens to be the marketplace that we're in. Okay. So guys, any questions on those reports right there before I go forward? Good. Okay. Again, to get into this, there is a video on the YouTube channel on doing those reports too. Okay. I have that in there. And again, either print the reports out or leave something behind. So they have something tangible that they can touch, that they can really take a look at. Okay. All right. Moving on. Excuse me. Next. So we talk about market ready. Now we want to talk to them and we got to get it product ready. Okay. We got to get it product ready because when you're talking to a seller, they have to get out of their head. They don't have a home anymore, right? It's now a house. House is a product. They may have lived in that property for 20 years, 30 years, 10 years. It doesn't matter. At that time, for those years, it was a home. That's where they lived. Now we're selling something. You're selling a product. They have to understand it's no longer a home. It's a house. And that is a product, and that's how we're going to sell it. Okay. And that's how we need to position it. So you're going to talk about product pricing. When I talk about product pricing, I like to think that there's 3 tiers. You have your top tier of the pricing, you have your middle tier and your lower tier. In my head, and when I see things, top tier of properties right now, when you see what's flying off the market, the fastest are properties that were flipped. Sometimes whether if they're good or bad, still flying off pretty quick because we've seen some crappy flips. I'm sure you guys all have. But a top tier is a property that was flipped, everything's redone, move-in ready, or a property that is in immaculate condition, wasn't flipped, but is move-in ready, and the buyer doesn't have to do anything. Middle tier may be something that is in moving condition, maybe needs some updating, maybe needs some stuff done to the bathrooms, the kitchen, but floors are in good shape. They can move in and really not have a huge capital expenditure coming out of their pocket within the first year, maybe 2 years. And then your lower tier are properties that need a lot of work. Okay. So that's when you're talking about product and pricing. It's kind of like you have your, I don't know, name brands of clothes because I don't shop, but what's like name brands of clothes? Gucci or some shit like that, or Armani? I don't know. Whatever it is. I don't know. What's the LV? Louis Vuitton thing? So that's a top tier brand, right? And then you got Target, you got Walmart. Rob, you're calling me. I'm doing a Zoom right now, buddy. Check the calendar. It's on there. Okay. Call you back after. All right. So this is when you're talking to them as far as what tier that they're in. They need to understand what tier and what echelon of pricing that they're going to be in. And then when you're selling a product, I always ask them, how much are you willing to invest? How much are you looking to invest in your house to sell it for the price that you want? And a lot of times the seller sits back and they look at it like, what do you mean? How much am I going to invest? Well, if you want top tier pricing, there are things that we need to fix. There are things we need to address, where we need to have it painted, we need to have the floors cleaned, the carpets cleaned, hardwood floors redone. We need to bring in a stager, have a home stager come in and get it set. If you want top tier pricing, then you need to invest money into that product to make it a top tier price. Okay. So when you talk to them in the beginning for that and ask them what they're willing to invest, and if they come back and say, I can put in $1,000, couple $1,000, great. Now you know what you're working with, and you can walk around the house and give them some ideas on different things that they need to do to get that product ready to put in the marketplace in the most fashionable light to get the top dollar for it. And if they say, I don't have any money to put it into it, then that's where you're having a separate conversation with them that pricing may be adjusting down to a different tier. Okay. So have that conversation with them about what they're willing to invest, what they have to invest. Okay. When you're doing that and talking to them, you want to review the net sheet with the seller. There's a video on the YouTube channel on preparing the net sheet for the seller. And it's done, and you can do it through the MLS. All right. The video shows you how to do that. But reviewing the net sheet with them is something that is incredibly important for a couple of reasons. One, it gives them an idea that, okay, if we sell it $400,000, here's what we're looking at for what your expenses are. Here is your mortgage payoff. Here's your second mortgage payoff. Here's the commission. Here's the transfer tax, your conveyancing. Here's notary fees. Here's everything. And you give them the net. And this is what you're going to walk out here with. You're going to walk out of here with $125,000. Okay. And how is that? Is that okay, Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller? Does that allow you to do what it is that you want to do? Yep. Great. No problem. Awesome. Here's the form. You can, and just have them sign down at the bottom that you reviewed it with them. And here's why you want them to sign it. Because when you have them sign that, and then you get to a couple days prior to closing and they see the Alta and they see what their net is, they're going to question you on some of the fees. Well, what is this? You didn't tell me about this. You didn't tell me I have to pay transfer tax. You didn't tell me I have to pay for this. Well, I did, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, and here's the form. I reviewed this with you from day one. You signed off on it. So we did talk about it. Sorry you didn't remember. Now shut up and pay it and move forward. Okay. But if you don't review what their cost is going to be when it comes down time for closing, I'm telling you, they're going to question it and probably be a little bit jacked up and upset about something. Okay. So review that with them. Have them sign it. You can send it to them through dotloop as well if you're doing things digitally and virtually. Okay. The other part is now the product must be shown and it has to be ready to show at all times. So making sure that property is ready to show at all times. And you have to have the inconvenience talk with that seller. Get their head right. You are going to be inconvenienced, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. In today's market, you're going to have 60 people walk through your home within the first 3 to 4 days of the property being marketed. That's the way today's marketplace is. So get out, go somewhere, get the dogs out of here, go put them somewhere, because if I get 50 to 60 people in your house in the first 4 days, I'm probably going to get you $20,000 to $30,000 over asking price. So go put your dog in Best Friends or some doggy daycare, or give it to a dog lover or something. Not my house, because my dog ate my wife's glasses last night. Awesome. It's great. So do something, but explain to them the inconvenience of showing the property. Got to be ready to show at all times. When you get up in the morning, before you go to work, make sure everything's cleaned up, clothes are off the floor, put your bras, drugs, and everything away. Okay. Because I've certainly walked into houses where all that stuff is laid out. I'm sure some of you guys had to get all that stuff away, get it out of there. Okay. Be ready to show at all times. It will be an inconvenience. Okay. Guys, any questions on that part before I move on to the next slide? Okay. Next, contract ready. This is a big one. Okay. You need to get their head right for the contract. For whatever reason, I don't know what that reason is. People in real estate, buyers and sellers, believe that when a realtor presents them a contract to sign it and they sign, they think that contract is as valuable as this tissue, and that it is not meaningful, and that it's not a contract, and they can do whatever they want, walk away from whatever. And I don't understand why. And I think a lot of that is because of how it's explained to your client. When I go, I always bring a blank contract with me, and I will leave that there with them. I would talk to them about the contract and explain to them, this is the contract that you will sign when we have a buyer for your property, okay? You will be signing this contract. It is a legal binding document, and all parties are bound to the terms of the contract. You want to take some time and review the main components of the contract. And the reason I go through all this stuff, guys, will make sense at the end when I kind of wrap it up all together. But you don't have to go through the whole contract with them, but review the main components of it. I always review the financing component of the contract. I want to explain to them how crucial and how vital that paragraph is of the contract and the closing. Because we all know that you may have an offer that's $40,000 above asking price, but if the financing part isn't there, it doesn't matter because you're not going to get to closing. So the highest offer is not always and necessarily the best offer. If someone's coming to the table and they have a financing contingency, you need to make sure you're doing your homework, that financing is done. I'm going to pick up the phone and I explain to the seller, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'm going to pick up the phone. I'm going to call the lender on that approval letter and ask them, what stage of the approval are you in? Do you have their docs? Do you have their 1099, their W-2, their pay stubs, their tax returns? Do you have all that and has all that been underwritten? Or did you go off of Mr. Smith telling you that he makes $500,000 a year, even though 450 that is in cash? So you want to have that conversation with him. And I'm going to explain that to the seller that I'm going to do that. I'm going to make that call and I'm going to make sure that the financing is locked solid before we proceed with someone. Okay. The other part is the inspections and the CO. I'm going to talk to them about the inspections. Okay. When I asked them in the beginning, how much money do you have to invest into your product, into your house to sell it? I'm also going to talk about inspections. Buyers going to do inspections. They will find stuff wrong with your house. Your house is beautiful. I love it. It's like the Taj Mahal. It's beautiful. They will find things wrong. Your house is 1 year old. Inspector will find things wrong with the property. It will happen. That's what the inspector gets paid to do. So, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, how much money do you have in the bank to take care of repairs when it comes down to it? Because what's going to happen, buyer does their inspection, they will submit a requested list of repairs, and we're going to have negotiation 2.0 with that. The first negotiation is the price and the terms. Negotiation 2.0 is the inspection. And I want to understand, do you have cash set aside for that to take care of repairs? And you need to understand if they do. And if they do say, yes, I got a couple grand, a few grand, $5,000, or I got nothing. I got ugats. I don't have anything to do. Okay, well, we need to understand how we're going to price the property if you don't have resources to take care of repairs. Are we going to do it as is? Are we going to adjust the price down? Are we going to negotiate that as part of the terms of the deal? That, hey, you offered 300, we'll go 295 because seller doesn't have any money for repairs, or go 296 or something like that. But be creative. But you have to have that conversation with them, okay? The other part is the CO. It happens way too often and way too frequent, guys, that a seller gets the contract and then you contact the seller and say, okay, need you to order the CO. And like, what is that? I don't know what that is. Well, you got to contact the township and they come out, they do this, they do that, they do this, they do that. And next thing you know, boom, seller gets whacked with $2,000 or $3,000 in repairs that they have to do just for the CO, all depending on what town that it's in. That's going to shock them once they get to the point, because here's what agents do, right? You put a property under contract, you start counting the commission, correct? Don't lie. I know you do. We all do. Okay. Done that for years. Sellers do the same exact thing when they get a price on their property. They start spending that money already and right away. Well, I'm going to walk out of here with X, and they start spending it. Now, if that X goes down by $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, that's cash out of pocket. They're going to be upset about that. But if you prep them in the beginning for the CO, and when you go out and meet with them, you should go to the township website prior to meeting with them and print out what the township CO requirements are. Take that and give that to them. Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, here are the requirements for your certificate of occupancy. Get a jump on it right now. We know we're selling. We're going to close. Get a jump on some of these repairs right now. Present that to them. Okay. So talk about those parts of it. Number 3, explain the benefits and value of having an attorney represent them and the worthwhile investment. Okay. You are not an attorney. I can say that to everyone except Mr. Venus. I cannot say that to him because he is. But you are not an attorney. You cannot represent their legal interest. You, as their agent, are their marketing agent. Your job is to market the property. You cannot give them legal advice. Guys, I'm telling you, when I sold, I had an attorney represent my client every single freaking time. Every time I had him do it. It was a real estate attorney, local real estate attorney. I loved it because as soon as the contract was done, I was done. I went to closing, got some call from people, bullshitted a little bit, and walked out of there with a check, and my client was incredibly happy. Okay. It is a worthwhile investment to hire an attorney to represent their legal interest. One, it does for you. It takes a tremendous amount of liability off of you because that person is being represented by an attorney. Okay. Two, it saves you a lot of time. If you're not putting in the time from contract to close that the attorney's doing, it saves you a lot of time that you can now take that time, go out, sell more, grow your business, increase your productivity, which is going to make you more money in the long run. So it's a worthwhile investment. I will have that conversation every day of the week with my buyers, with my sellers. So talk to them about having an attorney. Cost you $1,000, Mr. Seller. I'm going to get you another 19 grand for your house. So, okay, take your grand of that and pay for an attorney. Worthwhile investment. Okay. Questions on that piece before I move on to the last slide or one of the last slides?
Hey, Mark,
Yeah.
going back to number 2 on this slide, can you reference those topics in an as-is sale or as-is buying option?
What do you mean?
So like if getting ready to list a property and the owners want to put it up as is
Okay.
with and sell it as is, when it comes to the inspections, the COs, any of those types of things, how to have that type of discussion with them on the price point and what it is they're really going to be getting at.
So, good question. Very good question, David. Thank you for the question. Yeah. So if that comes up and they talk about selling their property as is, my first question is going to be why? Why do you want to sell it as is? Why don't we do any repairs? Okay. Why? Because what they have to understand is the stigma that gets attached to that as is wording that goes into multiple listing service and goes out to realtor.com and Zillow and Trulia and homes.com. There's a stigma that goes attached to that. If the property is beat up and it's in bad shape, sure, I get it. If the property is not beat up, then I'm going to probably advise against doing it, or not advise against it, but have the conversation because Mr. Seller, you got to understand that if we list your property at $300,000 and we market it as is, as soon as the buyer walks in the door, they're at 270 and they haven't seen anything. They're going to knock a good 10% off your property off that price just because of the as is stigma. Because in their head, this is the psychology of it. So I would talk about getting the mindset right. The psychology of it is if they see as is, in their head, it's, oh, gee, how bad is this place going to be? And then the realtor is going to walk in like, oh my God, do you see that? It's going to $100,000 to fix this house. I can't let you do that. The kitchen's going to cost $70,000 to fix that one kitchen cabinet because most realtors don't know what they're talking about. Okay. So I'm going to have the conversation with them about what the stigma is as is and what the buyer's initial mindset's going to be and how the realtor is going to react dealing with that buyer when they walk in. Because no disrespect to fellow realtors in our business, but most realtors don't actually understand the cost of construction or materials to fix things in a property. They don't. And that's just because they haven't done it and no harm, no foul. But we know a lot of times it's not the reality of what it is. Does that make sense, Dave? So if they ask that, I need to take a deeper dive and find out why it is they want to do that. Okay. Well, because my septic is beat. Okay. Different conversation, you know, well, my house is old and, you know, I haven't updated. I get it, but your mechanicals are maybe 10 years old, 12 years old. We can be okay with that. They have to be functional at the time of closing. Your roof is 15 years old. It's got to be functional. No leaks coming in or anything like that. So what they think in their head may be something that may be drastic or catastrophic isn't in reality. And we understand that because we deal with it. Okay. Makes sense? Okay. Guys, any other questions before I move to the next part? Okay. Closing ready. Okay. We're going to talk to them and get closing ready. All right. So we're going to discuss repairs and how and when they should be done. So we're talking about repairs. The buyer asks for repairs. You agree on certain things. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you're going to have the repairs done by a licensed contractor. Okay. Be done by a licensed contractor. You're going to pay them or maybe pay them at closing, but we're going to take all that paperwork. We're going to have work orders, paid invoices, and we're going to submit that to the buyer. That way, Uncle Joe is not repairing a plumbing leak that Uncle Joe will not have any responsibility, culpability, liability to whatsoever if something wasn't done right. The other part is that when the buyer comes in for their walkthrough and they take a look at some of the repairs that were done, and they say, well, this wasn't done to my liking. Sorry, Mr. Buyer, can't help you out with that, but we had a licensed contractor take care of all these. We told you in writing, we will have the licensed contractor repair these, and we did. You're not a licensed contractor, so go pound sand, give me my money. Okay. So explain to them how and the best way to have it done. Moving, help them out with some moving quotes, get them a couple of different moving companies. If you need some moving companies, we have some we can get to you. That's not a problem. But the moving itself, do not have them move the day of closing. Why do you not want the movers coming the day of closing? Anyone?
They're gonna mess up your pretty home.
Or they may mess it up. They may not show up. They may show up late. That if you have closing at 11 o'clock, your mover better be there around 4 or 5 a.m. to load up the house. That's not going to happen. If you have closing at 2 or 3 and they're supposed to be there at 9, what happens if they don't get there till 11 and there's still stuff in the house and the buyer comes due to do their final walkthrough? Well, now we're talking about an escrow, that there's a post-settlement escrow until all the stuff gets out of there. What if your seller's buying another property after that and they need all the money? Okay, there's a lot of issues that could happen with the mover being scheduled the day of. I explained to the sellers, get the mover there the day before closing, get everything moved out. If you need an air mattress, cool, I'll get you an air mattress, sleep at a friend's, I'll put you up in a hotel, whatever it is. Okay, I'll spend a couple $100 to put up in a hotel so that closing day is as smooth as it can possibly be, because that is the last thing the seller is going to remember when they walk out of closing. Okay, have it scheduled the day prior to closing. Broom swept and clean condition. Number 3. This seems like something so small, but I'm telling you, it is a big issue. That's what the contract calls for. Guys, have the property clean. Have the property clean. This is all about the investment we talk about putting into your product, because spend a couple $100 and have a cleaning crew, a cleaning person come in to clean the property. Because if they don't, I'm telling you, a buyer will go to the walkthrough and the toilet will be dirty. And they will lose their freaking mind. This place is disgusting. The toilet's dirty. I'm not cleaning it. I want a new toilet. I want $500 for a cleaning crew. And I'm telling you, that specifically has happened before. The fridge, people will go in. If the refrigerator is not clean, if the freezer is not clean, they're going to lose their mind about that. It becomes very dramatic. Closing day is very stressful for buyers and sellers. So if all these things are done, when you think about the obstacles that you could face come closing day, remove the obstacles. Remove those obstacles so closing day is happy, it's joyful, everyone's talking in closing, they're bullshitting, having a good time, everyone walks away happy, okay? Explain to them that it needs to be clean. Talk about what's needed for closing. You need your ID, okay? You need receipts. Hopefully we'll get them before, as far as the work that was done. Bring all the keys, garage door openers, instruction manuals for any appliances or mechanicals or anything that's there. You know, you can leave that stuff in one of the kitchen cabinets or drawers, that's fine, but those are all the stuff that's needed for closing day. Okay, then you go there and get your check. Now, here's something that's actually funny. The buyer can choose time and place for closing. We get that. The buyer's pick and title. A lot of times sellers are like, well, 2 o'clock doesn't work for me. Okay, go at 11, sign ahead of time, sign the day before, sign 2 days before. The buyer and seller do not need to be at closing together. We're actually one of the few states where the buyers actually go to closing table together. Most times it doesn't happen that way. Buyer and seller aren't even there together. So if the time doesn't work for the seller for whatever it is, get in contact with the title companies doing the closing and have them go ahead of time and sign the docs ahead of time. And they're done. They don't even need to go to closing. Get a wire instructions form and the money can be wired to the bank account, or go there as their agent. You're there as the agent at closing, grab their check, go meet them after. That day, that night, next day, and that's a final goodbye to you when you're handing over a massive check to the seller. Hopefully it's a massive check to the seller. Guys, everything was great. It was perfect. No problem. Here's your money. Here's your proceeds. Now let's go buy a house together. Okay. But they don't have to be there. So don't think that they have to be there. It becomes inconvenient for the seller. Okay. Questions on any of that so far? Excellent. Moving on. So last piece, leverage your team. When you're out at a listing appointment, you're one person on a listing appointment. all of the things that we're talking about, all the things that I'm talking about saying and having the conversation with the seller, it makes you look a lot stronger, appear stronger. The perception is very different, that you know what it is that you're talking about. And then your commission becomes less of an objection from that seller. Because that's two big things seller wants to know: price, commission. Well, if I'm explaining all this and explaining the process, I know it's a lot, but I want them to know that there's a lot that's involved in this entire process. When they understand there's a lot that's involved in this process, they're not going to bitch about paying whatever commission is that I want to charge. Now, I'm out at the appointment and I'm one person, but you have a team behind you. You got a broker. There's other agents that you work with. You have the title company. You have the attorney. Move this out of the way so you can see it. There's contractors, movers. Everyone that's involved is a part of your team, and you explain that to them. You have a whole arsenal of people behind you. Mr. Seller is going to help get us to closing smooth, and it's going to be easy for you. Okay. So, because I want them to understand all the people that are involved, and like, okay, well, maybe, paying this amount of money, maybe it's validated. Wow, there's a whole lot that's going on. It's got a lot of people that are involved, a lot of moving and shaking that's happening, a lot of moving parts. Yes, that's why you're paying me the commission that I'm getting paid. Okay. So explain the value of the team that you have in place and what the benefit is. This is going to help you control the transaction. As soon as you lose control over the transaction, the seller tries to take it from you, they will steamroll you the entire way. If you're out at the listing appointment and that seller's trying to control everything, the entire transaction is going to be a nightmare. The pricing was going to be a nightmare. The negotiation of offers is going to be a nightmare. The inspections, mud on me, that's going to be a nightmare. I'll tell you that. That's going to be a big nightmare. So have control over the transaction. Okay. The more you're explaining to them the process, the people behind you, it's going to give you control of the transaction, makes everyone happy. And then when you have that and you have the seller's mindset right, helps validate who you are, the value of you, and the money that you earn and deserve. And you do that, guys, I'm telling you, you're going to get a tremendous amount of referrals from this, because you have made this process very simple for the sellers. You have educated them on what the process is. You took it from a home to a house, a product, took that product from the initial conception stage to the final sale stage. That's exactly what it is that you're doing when you're selling a property. Okay. So there's a lot that goes behind it, but you got to get their mindset right. Don't just go out and try and rush through the listing appointment. Hey, great. Your house is beautiful. Woo, awesome. Oh my God. It's like, look at that. I mean, guys, we all watch Bravo TV, right? And seeing those shows. Wow, this is spectacular. It's amazing. Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. Go in and sit down and get dirty. Get dirty and talk to them about what's happening. Okay. Make sense, guys? We got a few minutes left till we get cut off. So open up to any questions. If you guys have any questions, comments, anyone want to interject any info, go ahead. I'll sit back and wait. Anybody have any questions on any of the stuff, any of the slides? Okay. Guys, I will have this. I will pop this on in the Facebook group, and I will put it on the YouTube channel as well. We'll have that, and it'll live on the YouTube channel for anyone who wants to go back and reference any of this stuff. So guys, listing is, we all want listings, and you want to do everything you can, because the competition is so heavy right now. People are buying stuff down, buying listings down, going in, doing it for small prices, small commissions, just to get the business. The more you know, the more time you spend with that person, with that seller, educating them on the process, what you do, and validating you, rather than trying to breeze through it, the more people you're going to get to go with you. All right. So I appreciate you guys jumping on today. Thank you for taking the time. I'll get this converted, take about a half hour or so and have it up. And if you guys have any questions on it, just give me a shout and let me know. All right. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for taking the time today. And
Thank you, Mark.
you guys need anything. All right.
Thank you.
All right. You got it. See you guys. Take care.